Hey, everybody. Welcome to Whatever Jerrod Says, the forum where we speak about topical issues that are going on in society. It's kind of a fun way to let it out. And, for some of you Facebook warriors out there that like to hide behind a keyboard, this gives you an opportunity to speak your voice and put your face and your words behind your attitudes, opinions, and issues. Um, it is an open forum, and the only rule is that we give respect to each other. All right. Tonight's topic that we're going to be discussing is pro-life versus pro-choice. A very, very heated topic amongst everybody. And tonight I'm very fortunate to have with me one of my fellow classmates, Janelle, and I'm going to turn it over to her now and have her introduce herself. Janelle, welcome.
Thank you. So my name is Janelle. I am currently working in child welfare, part of social work. I've been doing that for about 3 years. And like Jerrod said, I am a semester away from we are a semester away from getting our master's in social work. So yay, thank
Exciting
God.
times. Good deal. Okay, well, thank you. Again, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
So for tonight's discussion, I will be taking the pro-life side of the house, and Janelle will be taking the pro-choice. For some, I'm the enemy, and for others, she may be the enemy. But we're not enemies here. We're here to have a discussion. Okay, so Janelle, when it comes to the pro-choice side of the house, what's some of the main um, bullet points, or what are some of your main beliefs when it comes to pro-choice?
I I mean, I feel like what I would do for myself, okay, Finn, would do for myself is not necessarily parallel with my belief of pro-choice, because I don't know honestly what I would do in a situation where I had to make that decision. I think it would obviously depend on the circumstances, but I think that women should be able to choose what happens to their bodies, and I don't think that there should be anybody making them feel bad about that. There are so many situations where women and girls, young girls, children are in situations where you know they don't need to be having a child. I don't know why my dog is being a psycho right now, but
He missed you. It's fine.
he's just very needy.
That's your baby.
But the other piece of that, and one of the biggest issues that I have with people who are like pro life, you're killing a baby. And I know that that sounds really insensitive to say, and I do understand to a certain extent, that is something really serious and traumatic that someone has to go through. But working in child welfare, I then think about all the children that are in foster care that don't have homes, and all the people that just keep having kids over and over and over again and can't take care of them. And then these
Right.
kids are sitting in shelters and group homes and foster care and things like that, when there very well could have been possibly a different option. And children are a blessing, and every child is just amazing, and I love kids to death. But I do think that if people had more of an open mind about the topic, then maybe we would be in a different place with
Okay.
society and foster care system.
Well, thank you for that. Um, so one of your approaches is the autonomy of women, right? Their ability to choose what they can do with their body. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that's probably one of the uh, base points that most pro-choicers will stand on, right? They stand on that. You can't tell a woman what to do with their body, right?
Hmm.
And so on the opposing side with the pro-life, it is that, well, there's the what about the autonomy of the fetus and the child that's in the womb, right? And who gets to speak with that? Um, and you're right, statistically, first off, just real quick, um, are you the voice? So I can clarify this. Are you the voice for all women when it comes to pro-choice?
No, of course not.
It seems ridiculous to ask, but I'm going to put it out there. My guest tonight is not speaking on behalf of any agency, any schooling system. This is just her personal opinions and views. Some of it's based off of experience, some of it's based off of data and factual collection of data, and some of it's based off of personal opinion. Like most of us, I would hope. Thank you. So, one of the factual data pieces that you brought, a little factual data piece that goes along with what you brought up, is within children, right? So, they first off, the unfortunate pregnancy rate due to rape is about 5% of every um, rape that occurs ends up in pregnancy, about 5%. So, there's an average of about 32,000 pregnancy related rapes a year in the United States, which is staggering, right? Now, there's not a lot of data that I could collect in time if we went through full gestation, if that were miscarriages or whatever, but there's been pregnancies reported based off of rape. Um, and I don't even want to get into circumstances; it's just wrong, right? Um, and a majority of those, I think it was a staggering like 31%, if I remember, were all adolescent children. That's a shit ton of young kids getting raped and getting pregnant. And I can see the drive behind pro-choice abortion in that case. Now, whereas you said you didn't want to be insensitive to um, the pro-lifer saying don't kill a child. I don't want to be insensitive in saying that the 5% data that we see isn't enough to rechange laws, right? Um, so, so would you say that a pro-choice, a person who believes in pro-choice, or maybe even you, in your opinion, on pro-choice, would you say that you base some of that off of like morality, what your morals are?
I think I think everyone bases their opinion on abortion almost 100% off of your morals.
Okay, right. I would agree with that. The country right now is split. About 50% of the country is either pro-choice or pro-life. About 75% of the country all agree that abortion, the exception to the rule of abortion, is based off of rape. So statistics show that 75% of the people. So if they are 50%, half the country is pro-life. At least half of them agree that it would be okay to terminate a pregnancy based on rape. In fact, there's only 3 states right now. So there's a total of 15 states that still have laws in the books that are pre-pro Roe versus Wade, that they haven't changed since then, but they're really not enforced. Um, of those 15 states, only 3 of them, Alabama being like one that led the charge in 2019, which prohibits abortion. So, what's your feeling about like a state like of Alabama prohibiting?
So I lived in Alabama for like 6 months actually
Okay,
before I moved to Florida about 3 years ago. And that fucking state is ass backwards on so many levels.
okay.
Like, you can't buy alcohol on a Sunday. Like, that state is bullshit. So
Okay.
I honestly, like, it's infuriating, and I'm not even surprised that Alabama would be that close-minded
Okay.
to literally prohibit it. That's insane to me.
All right. And for those people from Alabama, and um, your state is kind of fucked up. It does have some fucked up laws. Every state kind of does have fucked up laws. It's not really a reflection of maybe you as
I
an
mean, Florida's
individual.
fucked up on so many levels.
Oh yeah. All states have their bad sides. So this is not an attack on people from Alabama per se, as it is so much as their laws and the way that they govern that state. And I can agree with some of that. I think that's. But okay, so let me ask you this question: What do you think? Where should a cutoff be? First off, do you think when you say the autonomy of woman has the right to choose, right? At what point do you think she doesn't have the right to choose? when it comes to abortion?
I mean, I definitely think that, within the first, I think that the sooner the better, 100%. Like you definitely don't want to take a child to, the second trimester if it's not necessary. But then you also have to think about, the genetic testing and things like that. Like if you're pregnant and you know that your child is basically going to be like severely disabled for their entire life, and you
Sure.
have the option, you should be able to make that choice, essentially, as long as it would be medically safe and appropriate. I mean, a
Okay.
doctor is not going to allow a woman to have an abortion at 37 weeks. That's insane. Like that,
It happens. In fact,
it
there's
does happen, but I would say that I would only be okay with that if it was going to kill the mother and the baby. We have these really high risk pregnancies where horrible things are happening. And then the genetic testing, if the child is going to, you know, be stillborn, or that this is going, I mean, I'm not a doctor, so I don't really know
sure,
all of that.
sure.
But if that the child, if you have the option, obviously the doctor's only going to give you that option if it's like a serious issue. So I feel like a woman should be able to make that decision as long as it's, medically okay.
Okay. Well, so I noticed your reaction when I said that, like, for example, when I said there's states, to include Alabama, that prohibit abortion, right? With that same line of questioning I just gave you, the city of New York just last year um, passed the ability for abortion to happen all the way up to the birthing table. So they consider a child when it breaches vaginal walls or cesarean walls. So, so 2 days before the due date, if mom doesn't want it, in fact, there's already been successful abortions. There have been people that have taken advantage of that.
That's fucked up.
And the state of Vermont, for example, they wash their hands with all the abortion. They have excluded themselves from that. So there's no like the state of New York itself, the law when it comes to abortion is the child has to be of normal gestational process. Once the child starts growing on a normal gestation, it's got all its fingers, toes, and it's developing at a rate. It's against the law to abort the child. All right, and typically that's around 20. They say it's 24 weeks, but there's that argument between 22 and 24 weeks. But they're talking like when you're up into 36 weeks, you can't have an abortion after that. And that's basically the state law. The city law says you can. And the determination is either mother's health, like the mother could die, or like you said, deformities or complications that might hurt the baby. But then the third one that got me on that one was that if the mother's mental capacity, if it will strain the mother's mental capacity, then a physician um, can authorize termination. I thought it was very subjective to me. I didn't like that because the law should be objective. It should be non-arguable. But then you have the state of Vermont, which says there's no verbiage. Like they say the verbiage it says they that no way will the government intervene in a woman's choice on what to do. It's up to they basically leave it up to the physician. And it's funny because they've also included physician's assistants, nurse practitioners, and anybody under, this is the verbiage that got me, anybody under the guidance of those. So if you have residents that haven't become doctors and they've been taught how to abort, then they can get overseen by a supervisor. And this is all in their state law. This is all in their legislature. So it's pretty scary stuff to me. So as you can see, and I talked to you a little bit earlier about the morality purpose, right? And I think you're right, right? I think one side, the pro-choice side, is for the mother, and then the pro-life side is for the fetus. And I think it's all based on morality. And when you look at the case of like Alabama, I would say that that's strongly tied to religion, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So you've lived there; it's like a Bible Belt, right?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. People are really nice there, but they're
Yeah. Oh no, no, yeah. This isn't an attack. Like I said, this isn't an attack on the people of Alabama. There's good people and then there's bad people, no matter where we're. But again, we're talking about governance, right? So, what? So, when you're saying morality, and I do this a lot. This is the one of those hard hitting questions I ask. Why is your opinion of morality and involving pro-choice? Why is it better than the morality of a pro-lifer?
I mean, I don't necessarily think it's better
Okay.
because everybody is entitled to their own opinion. However, I feel like people who are, very rigid in their pro life views don't really care. And I'm using the word care pretty loosely because I think
Yeah.
everyone cares to a certain extent, but I don't really think they understand the other pieces of like what comes with that. Like, yeah, you're pro life, like great.
Mhm.
Like you want all children to have a chance in the world, and it's not the baby's fault that mom got pregnant, blah blah blah, like all that stuff. But then like, are these same people, do these same people understand that you can't call in a report on a pregnant woman because the child is not alive yet, according to DCF?
Right.
Did you know that? You can't call in a report on a pregnant woman, even if you see them shooting heroin up at,
Yeah.
6 months
It's
pregnant.
ridiculous. It's
You
absolutely
can't. You
ridiculous.
can't do that.
Yeah.
How do I'm very curious as to how these people feel about birth control, how they feel about Plan B, how they feel about, you know, um, IVF. Like, think about IVF. Like,
Yeah.
you have all these embryos and you have all these eggs that are being fertilized to potentially have a baby, but let's just say only one of them is normal.
Yeah.
Are you killing the other baby? Like, do you not agree with that? Like,
Right.
I'm very curious as to what those people who are so rigidly pro-life think about
Sure.
all these other issues, because there's so much more to it than just abortion.
Yeah.
So
I hope I can get another pro life supporter and do the same interview with them.
yeah,
And then maybe
I'm
you'll get the
very
maybe.
curious.
So what I know what I can I so I was baptized Catholic. I was an altar boy for many years. I actually signed up for seminary before I went into the Air Force. I wanted to be a priest. I wanted the free schooling, honestly, but so when you're looking at a lot of the Christian faith religion, um, a lot of monotheism um, really is supportive of pro-life in this sense that there's contraceptive is wrong, contraception is wrong, based and abortion is wrong based on the fact that God wants us to multiply, be fruitful and multiply, right? Hands uh, hands in the fields, is basically what it is. um, and I mean, I think with a lot of things, there's some loose interpretations with that too, and I'm sure there's more to it. I don't speak for every Catholic. I'm just or every Christian. I'm just speaking of my own experience and my own knowledge base. So when we talk about like the moral fiber of "Thou shalt not kill," um, I could get onto this tirade for another hour. About it's okay to kill certain times, but not other times. All those kind of things. Um, staying on track though. Okay. So if you could, so let's take morality away from it. All right. Because morals we're not going to win. It's completely subjective. If we're constantly saying like, no, the woman's right. I find it crazy because the autonomy of a woman is argued, right? Like the autonomy of a woman shouldn't supersede a child, right?
Hmm.
But yet when a woman's raped, that woman loses autonomy because it's a violent action. And so the autonomy of the woman is valid when she's raped, but when she becomes pregnant, then she loses that autonomy. And that's I just find it's a weird argument for me. Just like logically, it's a weird argument for the pro life side to say, well, a child born out of rape, should live, especially like in like this religious aspect, like the non-wed child born into sin and all that kind of stuff too. It's a very weird argument for me. So I try not to use that one as much. But so if we're taking morality out of it, right? What do you think? What would you like to see law-wise for, um, in regards to abortion?
I mean, I think that there needs to be, guidelines. I don't think a woman should just be able to, you know, have an abortion, you know, whenever she wants, however many times she wants. And I know there are definitely laws that, I mean, I had a client who was like, I can't get any more abortions. And I'm like, oh, okay. Um,
Stop having sex.
yeah, seriously. Um, so, I know there are definitely guidelines for that. And I think that there should be guidelines for it. Again,
What would be some of the points on those guidelines, though?
I mean, if I was the one making the policy and signing off on it,
Yeah, you like policy. What would
yeah.
you?
Um,
Couple bullets.
I would say, you know, that you shouldn't be able to have an abortion after the first trimester unless there was a medical condition. It was, an ectopic pregnancy or something along those lines. Some sort of serious medical deformity issue, something like that.
Sure.
But as far as like just it being like, I don't want to have a baby and this is what I want to do, I don't think you should be able to do it after the first trimester. I truly do think that a woman would know at that point, what decision they wanted to make. And I think it would be wrong to do it after that.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I don't think it should just be like a free for all. That's
Right.
also awful.
And I don't. And here's the other thing too. And again, I know I said I take the pro-life side, but I'm throwing a few pro-choice things out there too. Is that I just don't think that those who are pro-choice are like, well, let's murder everything. I don't think that's the general attitude. But unfortunately, so those the radicals on the pro-left side only comprise of like 15% of what pro-life is about. Like, hey, this whole idea of it's okay if a person's raped to allow the baby to live. Absolutely no abortions, no matter what. That kind of radical ideology only exists in about 15% of those who believe in pro-life. Um, Another thing we were talking about earlier. So first, let me ask this question. So again, going back to the policy, do you think children should be able to get, say, a 15-year-old or 16-year-old should be able to get an abortion?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
And I
What
don't think,
stipulations should be included in that?
I don't think that are you in my policy class? No. So one of the groups did a debate on it, on like the consent and stuff like that. I don't think a child should have to get parental consent, if they're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old and they want to get an abortion. I don't think they should have to get consent.
So do you think that they're mature enough to make that decision?
No, I don't. But I
Okay.
also don't think that the parent should be the sole person that makes that decision for them.
Should they be involved though? Should the parent be involved at all?
I think it should be up to the child.
So again, then that goes back to the maturity. First off, like I have a side to this that I'll get to in a minute, but so a 14-year-old, let's say a 14, 15, 16-year-old gets pregnant, right? And it's got to be a scary thing for them. It's got to be, I can only imagine. Um, and so now they have this mature decision. Do you think that the 14, 15, and 16-year-old are mature enough to make that choice? And should doctors like listen to that without kind of consulting with parents? I mean, with age of consent and legality and all that.
I mean,
Not really moral. I'm not looking at morals really. I'm just looking at I'm looking at the legality of it.
I think that's a tough decision. I think that's a tough thing to talk about. 14 is a tough age for me to really talk about, but 15, I know you only have to be 15 to be able to consent for your own treatment for like mental health services.
Sure.
So, I mean, if you're old enough to do that, then you should be old enough to make a decision without a
Fair
parent
enough.
on.
I have arguments about 18-year-olds joining the military. I honestly don't think, since our brain doesn't mature until we're 26, I don't think that we should be making mature decisions until we're 26.
I
And
mean,
even then, some of the 26-year-olds I know don't make mature decisions. But so 6 states in our union right now require no parental um, involvement for an abortion.
mhm.
Um, 8 states require at least one parent consent, one parental consent. 9 states, uh, oh sorry, 8 states require at least one, and then the rest are mostly, there's like little stipulations, whether it be one parent, two parent, or if the child has to go, there's other stipulations that are involved in that, like educational pieces and things like that. So I think, and you feel free to comment on this. I feel that, so you had mentioned earlier that you had seen women that have child after child after child, right?
Yes.
And they shouldn't, but they do, right? And then that, as you know, when we're talking life chances and things like that, that really kind of creates a new generational thing, right? So mother has 6 kids, um, maybe he's on welfare, maybe not, but maybe they are, and those 6 kids see where their environment is. Mother doesn't care, but the only way that they get money is through this welfare system, and that kind of creates a beast, if you will. So, do you think that we should be supplying the amount of funding we do into things like Planned Parenthood? I hate even bringing that up because I don't even. Anyways, we put money into Planned Parenthood, and
Hmm.
and argumentatively, Planned Parenthood um, uses tax dollars to pay for an abortion. It's a pool of money, and I know that they argue that they don't. They put a majority of their money into the education pieces and contraception and things like that. Taxation. They also have they're not taxed, when they do a lot of these things. So part of that pot of money does go to an abortion, and then the big pot of money things, federal tax dollars are paying for some abortion. Whether
Hmm.
it be because they're not spending money in the training, that they can focus money on abortion. However you want to look at it, there's a way there's a part of that that is paid for it. Do you think with the amount of money that we spend in that kind of realm that we may benefit more if we put into more of an educational piece or invest in communities rather than into a system that almost, you know, it almost kind of promotes pregnancy. Like it almost promotes it, like if you have a woman that has 7 kids and she's getting, no college, no high school, out there, not even working, but yet has 7 kids and is getting $1,000 per kid, or if that was the idea behind it, what would be the incentive to not have kids?
I mean, I feel like I definitely have two different opinions of that, which
Mhm.
would probably sound contradicting. But when I was a teenager and didn't have health insurance, um, I didn't want to get pregnant, so I went to Planned Parenthood and got
Okay.
birth control there.
Sure.
I think that Planned Parenthood is given a really bad name, and
Yeah.
I think people really don't necessarily understand what Planned Parenthood fully is. I think people look at Planned Parenthood as, a free abortion, like kind of what you're saying.
Yeah.
Um, and I truthfully don't think it is that. I think that they do a lot more for women than just that. I mean,
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure. And
um,
I think that's an education piece that people need to know.
yeah. So, I definitely don't think that Planned Parenthood should go away, even though, like, I know a lot of locations have closed because of funding issues and things like
Yeah. Yeah.
that. I don't know. I guess I kind of feel both sides of that because I definitely think that there needs to be more of an education piece, but I don't think that that starts, with Planned Parenthood or tax dollars. I think that that starts with, people not being so afraid to talk to their kids about getting pregnant and, the schools being so afraid to teach women and kids and teenagers about safe sex so that these things aren't happening, not,
Sure.
and obviously the outlier is rape and things like that, so that doesn't really count, but I think that sex is just such a taboo topic to talk about with kids because it's like, oh, you don't want your kids to be having sex, but in reality you should really just be teaching them to be safe, and I
Yeah,
think
I
that
agree
would
with that.
be a huge piece of it. So
Okay.
I don't know if
Well,
that answered your
no,
question.
no, 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 it did. It absolutely did. Uh, and thank you for that. Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, well, I could keep going on about this. There's a couple other things that I wouldn't mind talking about, but for the sake of time, we're gonna cut this short here. Um, any last words that you wanna, any last ideas or anything that you would like the four people that are watching this to know?
I mean, I just think that education is so big on things like this, and I really would like to tell people who are just so rigidly pro-life that think about all the other things, that all the other factors when it comes to pregnancy and abortion, and just the well-being of a child coming into a world where it could potentially not be wanted. So
For sure, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I think and I guess my closing statement on this, and before I close everything, thank you so much for your input. I appreciate it so much. I thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy. What'd you work like 20 of the last 24 hours? It's insane. Um,
something
and
like
you have a very, very tough job. And I know that you being the front line, on the front line for those children out there, I know you have a great deal of care and compassion. And I would think that probably some of, if circumstances were different, those children would never be experiencing anything because they wouldn't be here. And I know you're thankful that they're here and that you do have them. However, I think their parents probably need to be a little bit more educated before they got themselves into a situation that made it very difficult for their child.
that.
And I'm sorry, but I think my closing idea on this, on the whole pro-life, pro-choice thing, is that I think that most of society deals, especially today, deals in this very subjective nature, right? You have this idea that everything's touchy feely, and everything has to be euphoric, and a lot of people that are fighting on either side are living in this make believe world. And very rarely, I think the biggest piece is very rarely are they introduced to those situations. Granted, there were 32,000 rape related pregnancies out of 330 million people. So if you're putting all that into a room, you have 32,000 seems large, but next to 330 million people, it's not that large, right? And it's not large enough for people to get involved one way or the other, or change their mind one way or the other. So I think that a lot of people live in this kind of like euphoric make believe world that their way is the right way because it's a high and mighty pious idea. And the purpose of this talk is to get people thinking. I hope people on the pro life side listen to what you had to say, and I hope that they take a little bit of credence into what you had to say because I do. I really appreciate it. And then I hope people on the pro-choice side of the coin understand that you know people that want children to live are not saying that they want the mother to die. And I think that if they come to pro-life and it came to that choice where a mother could die by giving birth, and they could find this out in 4 months, 4 months of that pregnancy, that they'd say, okay, well, we want the mother to live. You know, I think the concern really gets really tricky when you're up in that 36-week category, and whose life is more valued than anybody. And that's a decision, man. Here's the other thing too: doctors have some decisions they got to make, very very tough decisions they have to make, as well as the mother has to make a tough decision. I can't imagine a woman who's pregnant that freely just says, when they're in 37 weeks or above, or they're getting close to to full gestation that they're going to look at this and say, "Oh, this is the easiest decision I ever made. I'm going to terminate my child." And I don't think it's just that easy. And the problem is the argument on both sides of the coin is they're making it that easy. Well, it should just be pro-choice, or it should just be pro-life, and it's
Right.
just not that simple. And we need more conversations like this. We need to educate ourselves, and that's the purpose of whatever Jerrod says. So again, Janelle, thank you so much. I wish you well on your end results for the semester. I wish you well with your work. I hope you have great days ahead of you when it comes to this stuff. Not too many more like yesterday though.
Yeah,
Um, I hope you had a good time.
I did. Thank you.
Good. Okay, and I hope to see you back sometime. We'll talk about a different subject matter next time too.
All right.
Pick your brain on some other things. Unless, of course, you want to add more to this. Go back, regroup your thoughts. If there are other points that you come up with later that you'd like to discuss, hit me up, and we'll get right back on the screen, and we will take care of business. Okay.
Cool.
All right. All
All
right,
right.
everybody. Thank you so much for watching. This has been really fun. As always, I challenge any of you that if you want to talk about this topic or there's another topic that you'd like to discuss and have issues with, I'll bring some questions your way. I'll give you an opportunity to back up what you believe in. Maybe we can educate each other. All right. So anybody can sit there behind that keyboard and complain all day long. This is an opportunity for you to voice and other people to speak and maybe make some friends along the way. All right. So until then, as usual, God bless you. God bless your family. And always, God bless America. Thanks for watching whatever Jerrod says.